Hejin stood in the vast archive chamber, his eyes fixed on the glowing screen before him. The room was silent except for the soft hum of ancient preservation fields keeping countless historical records safe. As the leading xenorchaeologist of the Galactic Research Council, he had spent years studying the history of spacefaring civilizations. But today was different. Today, he had found something strange. "Display first contact records, Earth, Section 7B, he commanded. The screen flickered, showing images and texts from humanity's first meetings with alien species. Hejin leaned closer, his eyes widening as he read. The records told an unusual story. When the first alien ships arrived on Earth in their ancient past, humans did something no other species had ever done. They welcomed the visitors with open arms. Not just welcomed them, but invited them to study everything about human society. Hejin pulled up more records, his fingers moving quickly across the control panel. "This cannot be right," he muttered, but every file showed the same pattern. The humans had built special research centers for alien scientists. They had volunteered for medical studies. They had shared their cities, their schools, and their homes with alien observers. He found an old video recording. In it, a human leader spoke to a group of alien researchers. "We invite you to study us, learn from us, and share your findings with your people. Earth's doors are open to all who wish to learn." Hejin sat down in his chair, thinking hard. In all his years of study, he had never seen anything like this. Most species protected their secrets. They hid their weaknesses. They carefully controlled what others could learn about them. But humans had done the opposite. He brought up another file. A report from an alien research team. They had been allowed to study human biology, human weapons, even human psychological weaknesses. The humans had answered every question, shown every detail. "Computer, show me the timeline," Hejin said. The screen filled with dates and events. The pattern continued for thousands of years. Even as humans developed faster ships, better weapons, and spread across the galaxy, they maintained their open-door policy. Any species that wanted to study humans was welcomed. A soft beep interrupted his thoughts. Someone was at the archive entrance. "Come in," he called out. His assistant, Yuna, entered the chamber. "Sir, the council is asking about your progress on the human historical analysis," she said. Hejin looked at the screen, then back at his assistant. "Tell them I found something. Something big." He pointed to the records. "For 10,000 years, we thought we were learning about humans because we were clever researchers. But look at this pattern. It's too perfect, too consistent." Yuna moved closer to look at the screen. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that maybe." Hejin paused, choosing his words carefully. "Maybe humans didn't let us study them because they were naive. Maybe they had a reason that none of us have figured out for 10,000 years." He started copying the most important files. This would need more research, more analysis. But for the first time in his career, Hejin felt like he was on the edge of a massive discovery. The real question wasn't what aliens had learned about humans over the past 10,000 years. The real question was, what had humans learned about everyone else? As the files copied, Hejin couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the biggest secrets weren't hidden behind locked doors. Sometimes they were hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to see the bigger picture. J1 sat in her private research chamber aboard the Galactic Council's main station, surrounded by floating holographic displays. As one of the most respected alien anthropologists, she had studied hundreds of species, but the humans continued to puzzle her. She waved her hand, bringing up a new set of records. The soft blue light of the displays reflected off her face as she studied the data. "Computer, show me human research cooperation statistics across all species," she commanded. The numbers that appeared were remarkable. Over 10,000 years, humans had participated in 47,892 major research studies. They had welcomed scientists from 1,436 different species. Not once had they refused a legitimate request to study their society. Most interesting, Jaiwan murmured, making notes on her personal tablet. She had reviewed these numbers many times before, but something about them still bothered her. No other species in the galaxy had ever been so open. A message alert blinked on her screen. It was from He-Jin, the xenorchaeologist. Found something unusual in the archives. His message read, "Can we meet?" Jaiwan sent a quick reply agreeing to meet. She had worked with He-Jin before. He was thorough and careful. If he thought something was unusual, it was worth investigating. An hour later, they sat together in her chamber. He-Jin looked excited as he shared his archive findings. "Look at this pattern," he said, pointing to his data. Every time humans let a new species study them, they asked questions about how that species conducted research. Jaiwan leaned forward, interested. "That seems natural. Scientists often discuss their methods." "Yes, but look closer," He-Jin replied. He pulled up more records. They asked different questions to different species. To the Lumari, they asked about their testing equipment. To the Voss, they asked about their data analysis methods. To us, they asked about our archival systems. Jaiwan felt a chill run down her spine. "They were studying how each species thinks," she said slowly. "How they solve problems. How they approach new information." "Exactly." He-Jin nodded eagerly. "But there's more. After each major research project, humans made advances in the exact areas they had asked questions about." Jaiwan stood up and walked to the window. The great spiral arm of the galaxy stretched out before her, countless stars twinkling in the darkness. Somewhere out there, human ships were still welcoming alien researchers aboard, still answering questions, still sharing their data freely. "We need to look at the bigger picture," she said finally. "Computer, show all major technological advances made by humans in the past 10,000 years. Overlay them with the dates of alien research projects." The display filled with data points and connecting lines. The pattern was clear and unsettling. Nearly every significant human advancement had come shortly after they had allowed themselves to be studied. "They weren't just letting us study them," Jaiwan said quietly. "They were studying us right back." Every research project taught them something new about how different species think and work. He-Jin nodded. "And they did it so openly that nobody ever suspected. After all, who would think that the subject of a study was actually the one gathering the most valuable data?" Jaiwan looked at the galaxy map again. Humans had spread far and wide, establishing peaceful relations with almost every known species. Everyone thought it was because humans were just naturally good diplomats. "We need to dig deeper," she said. "This is just the beginning. If humans have been gathering this kind of data for 10,000 years, they must have had a reason, a plan." As they began organizing their research, neither of them noticed the small light blinking on Jaiwan's computer, a message being sent automatically to a distant human monitoring station, noting their discovery with great interest. Tahi stared at her computer screen until her eyes hurt. As a junior researcher in the Galactic Technology Assessment Division, she had spent months studying human technological progress. Something about their development path didn't make sense. She pulled up another chart showing human advances in space travel. After the Arcturian scientists had studied human ships, humans had suddenly improved their engine design. After the Mirians had examined human navigation systems, humans had created better star maps. After every study, humans made a leap forward. "This can't be just luck," she whispered to herself. The empty office around her remained quiet. She often worked late when everyone else had gone home. A knock on her door made her jump. It was Do-hyun, her supervisor, a tall figure with tired eyes and graying hair. "You're still here?" he asked, walking into her office. "It's very late." Tahi nodded quickly. "Sir, I need to show you something." She turned her screen so he could see it. "Look at these patterns in human technological development." Do-hyun sighed. "Tahi, we've been over this. Humans are just good at learning from others. That's why they welcome researchers. No, sir, please look closer. Tahi pulled up more data. Every time aliens study humans, humans don't just copy the alien technology. They create something new, something the studying species hadn't even thought of. Do-hyun started to speak, then stopped. He leaned closer to the screen, his tired eyes suddenly sharp with interest. See this? Tahi pointed to a graph. When the Arcturians studied human ships, they used their own testing methods. Within a month, humans had developed a new engine that worked in a completely different way, a way that specifically addressed the weaknesses in Arcturian technology. That could be coincidence, Do-hyun said, but his voice didn't sound convinced. Tahi shook her head. Once is coincidence. Twice is interesting. But this has happened hundreds of times over thousands of years. She brought up more examples. Each time, humans learn something about how other species think and solve problems. Then they use that knowledge to create solutions those species would never expect. Do-hyun pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. Show me everything, he said. For the next 2 hours, Tahi walked him through her findings. How humans had learned about Marian spatial thinking by letting them study human navigation. How they had discovered Arcturian engineering limits by allowing engine studies. How each research project revealed as much about the researchers as it did about humans. This is why they let everyone study them, Do-hyun said finally. They're not just sharing information, they're gathering it. Every alien study tells them exactly how that species approaches problems. And there's more, Tahi added quietly. She pulled up one final chart. I've tracked how humans use this information. They don't just learn about each species separately. They combine what they learn. If one species is good at energy systems and another understands space-time well, humans create technology that uses both insights together. Do-hyun stood up and walked to the window. The city lights below twinkled like stars. How many people know about this? He asked. Just us, as far as I know, Tahi replied. I haven't shared it with anyone else. Do-hyun turned back to her, his face serious. Send everything to my secure account. We need to talk to some people about this. The right people. He paused. And Tahi, good work, very good work. As Tahi gathered her data, a small smile crossed her face. After months of late nights and endless research, someone finally believed her. But as she looked at her charts one last time, a thought struck her. If humans were this clever about gathering information, did they already know she had discovered their secret? Some men rubbed his tired eyes as he looked at the complex equations floating in the holographic display. As the Galactic Council's leading mathematician, he had solved many difficult problems. But this one was different. Do-hyun and Tahi had brought him their findings 2 weeks ago. Since then, he had barely slept, trying to understand the pattern in human technological development. There had to be a mathematical explanation for how humans processed all the information they gathered from alien studies. Computer, run analysis pattern Delta 7 again, he commanded. Numbers and symbols swirled in the air before him. This time, something caught his eye. Stop, he said sharply. Zoom in on section 47B. The hologram enlarged, showing a particular set of equations. Some men leaned forward, his heart beating faster. There it is, he whispered. The algorithm. He quickly sent messages to Do-hyun, Tahi, Ho-jin, and Ji-won. Within an hour, they had all gathered in his secure research room. Look at this, some men said, pointing to the floating equations. Humans didn't just collect data from alien studies. They processed it using this mathematical pattern. What does it mean? Jin asked, looking confused at the complex mathematics. Some men pressed a button, and the equations transformed into a simpler visual model. When aliens study humans, they reveal their own patterns of thinking. This algorithm takes that information and breaks it down into basic components. It's like like creating a map of how each species thinks and solves problems. But there are thousands of alien species, Tahi said. How could they process so much information? Sung Min smiled. That's the brilliant part. The algorithm doesn't just collect data, it combines it. It finds connections between different species' ways of thinking. If one species is good at solving energy problems and another understands space well, the algorithm combines these insights to create new solutions. Jai-1 stepped closer to the display. So humans didn't just learn about each species separately. They found ways to use everyone's strengths together. Exactly. Sung Min nodded. And look at this part. He highlighted another section of the equations. The algorithm also identifies gaps, areas where each species has blind spots in their thinking. Humans could see exactly what others might miss. Do-hyun sat down heavily in a chair. This is why they were always so welcoming to researchers. Every study gave them more data for this algorithm. They weren't just sharing information. They were building the most powerful problem-solving tool in the galaxy. But why? Tahi asked. Why go to all this trouble? Before anyone could answer, a soft chime sounded. A message appeared on the main screen. Your discovery has been noted. Please maintain current research protocols. Additional information will be provided at the appropriate time. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the message. They knew, He-jin said quietly. They knew we would figure it out eventually. This was part of their plan too. Sung Min looked at his equations again. The elegant mathematics seemed different now. Not just a pattern he had discovered, but a message written 10,000 years ago, waiting for someone to understand it. There's more to find, he said finally. This algorithm, it's not just about technology. There's something bigger here, something about why humans wanted to understand everyone so deeply. As they began to discuss their next steps, none of them noticed the subtle changes in the room's monitoring systems, adjusting quietly as humanity's ancient plan moved into its next phase. Hyun-woo walked through the silent corridors of the Galactic Database Center. As the Council's chief investigator, he had access to the most secure files in the galaxy. Today, he needed that access more than ever. The message they had received in Sung Min's lab troubled him. It wasn't a warning or a threat. It felt more like an invitation. Someone wanted them to keep digging. He placed his hand on the security scanner outside the restricted archives. The door slid open silently. Inside, banks of quantum computers stored the combined knowledge of thousands of civilizations. Computer, access historical database Alpha 1, he commanded. Search topic, human research participation patterns. The computer hummed softly as it processed his request. Data began flowing across his screen. Hyun-woo's eyes widened as he saw what the records revealed. He quickly sent an urgent message to the others. Within an hour, they had gathered in the secure archive room. Look at this, Hyun-woo said, pointing to the main display. Humans didn't just collect data about how different species think. They built the largest database of alien psychology and methodology ever created. He pulled up more records. Every time aliens studied humans, the humans recorded everything. Not just the research results, but how each species conducted their studies. What questions they asked, what they considered important, what they overlooked. But why? Jae-won asked. Why gather all this information? Hyun-woo smiled. Because humans had a plan that would take thousands of years to complete. He brought up another display. They needed to understand how every species thinks, what they value, what they fear. Not to use against them, but to find ways to help them work together. Show us, Sung Min said, leaning forward. Hyun-woo pressed a button, and the display changed. It showed thousands of connections between different species, cultural links, trade agreements, scientific collaborations. At the center of it all were the humans. When two species had trouble working together, humans would step in, Hyun-woo explained. Because they understood how both species thought, they could help them understand each other. They became the galaxy's mediators, bridge builders. Tahi studied the display. So all those research centers, all that openness, it was all part of their plan. Hyunwoo nodded. They turned themselves into the most studied species in the galaxy, and in doing so, they learned more about everyone else than anyone had ever known. But this is more than just gathering information, Do-hyun said slowly. This is social engineering on a galactic scale. Yes, Hyunwoo agreed, but not for power or control. Look at the results. He showed them more data. Wherever humans helped species work together, cooperation increased, trade grew, knowledge was shared, conflicts decreased. Hajin shook his head in amazement. They spent 10,000 years building peace, and we never even noticed. Another message appeared on their screen. Phase 1 analysis complete. Proceeding to Phase 2 revelation. Stand by for further contact. The group looked at each other. Whatever they had discovered was only the beginning. Humanity's plan was still unfolding, and somehow, they were now part of it. As they began discussing what to do next, Hyunwoo noticed something in the data they hadn't seen before. It wasn't just about understanding other species. The humans had been preparing for something. Something big. But what? Senior Council member Minji stood before the gathered assembly in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. The vast chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of species. The evidence she was about to present would change how they all viewed human civilization. She took a deep breath and began. Distinguished members of the Council, I stand before you today with remarkable findings about our long relationship with humanity. The chamber fell silent as she activated the main display. Behind her, a vast hologram showed the complex web of connections that Hyunwoo had discovered. For 10,000 years, she continued, we believed we were studying humans. We sent our scientists to their worlds. We examined their technology. We analyzed their society. But today, we have discovered something extraordinary. She gestured to her research team. Hajin, Jaewon, Tahi, Do-hyun, Sungmin, and Hyunwoo, seated in the front row. These dedicated researchers have uncovered humanity's true purpose in welcoming our studies. The display changed, showing the complex algorithm Sungmin had discovered. Humans weren't just passive subjects. They were gathering data about every species that studied them. Not to harm us, but to understand us completely. Murmurs filled the chamber. Minji raised her hand for silence, but their purpose was greater than we imagined. They used this understanding to guide the development of galactic civilization itself. She showed them the evidence, thousands of cases where humans had helped different species overcome their conflicts and work together. They became the galaxy's mediators not by chance, but by design. They knew that true peace could only come from deep understanding. The display shifted again, showing new data. And now we know why. Their long-term scans of the galaxy have detected something approaching. Something that will require all our species to work together to face. The chamber erupted in concerned voices. Minji waited for quiet before continuing. Humanity spent 10,000 years preparing us for this moment. They didn't just study us. They helped us learn to cooperate, to combine our strengths, to overcome our differences, because they knew that one day we would need to stand together. She brought up the final display. Long-range scans showing massive energy signatures approaching from intergalactic space. They detected these signals 8,000 years ago. Instead of preparing alone, they chose to unite the galaxy. They knew that only by combining the strengths of all our civilizations would we have a chance. The chamber was completely silent now. Minji looked at the assembled representatives. Humans didn't just let us study them. They taught us how to work together. They showed us that our differences weren't weaknesses. They were strengths waiting to be combined. Suddenly, every screen in the chamber lit up with a new message. Phase 2 complete. Final revelation authorized. Humanity welcomes the Galactic Council to full participation in Project Unity. Minji smiled. And now, at last, we understand. This was their plan all along, not to rule, not to control, but to unite, to prepare us all for something bigger than any single species could face alone. As the council members began to discuss this revelation, Minjai looked at her team. They had uncovered part of humanity's plan, but she knew there was more to come. The real test of humanity's 10,000-year project was about to begin. Jin-Ho stood at the observation deck of the Galactic Council's main station, looking out at the stars. As president of the council, he had just finished reviewing all the evidence about humanity's 10,000-year plan. Now he had to address the galaxy about what they had learned. Behind him, screens showed hundreds of ships arriving from every corner of the galaxy. Representatives from all known species were gathering for this historic moment. Humanity had called them all together, saying it was time for the final phase of Project Unity. The observation deck's door opened, and Minji entered with her research team. "It's time, Mr. President," she said quietly. Jin-Ho nodded and turned to face the cameras. Billions of beings across the galaxy would watch this broadcast. He took a deep breath and began to speak. "Citizens of the galaxy," he said, his voice clear and steady. "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter in our history. For 10,000 years, we thought we were the ones studying humanity. We were wrong." He gestured to the displays, showing the approaching energy signatures from intergalactic space. Humanity detected these signals 8,000 years ago. They knew that something was coming, something that would test all of us. But instead of preparing alone, they chose a different path. The screens behind him showed the complex web of connections humans had built between species. They let us study them so they could study us in return, not to find our weaknesses, but to understand our strengths. They learned how each species thinks, how we solve problems, how we see the universe. And then, Jin-Ho continued, they did something remarkable. They used this knowledge to help us work together. When species fought, humans helped them understand each other. When civilizations struggled, humans showed them how to cooperate. A new image appeared, a massive space station under construction at the edge of the galaxy. "This is Harmony Station," Jin-Ho explained. "Humans have been building it in secret for 1,000 years. It combines the best technology and knowledge from every species in the galaxy. And now, they're giving it to all of us." The doors of the observation deck opened again. A human woman walked in, dressed in simple clothes. The room fell silent. "My name is Sunhai," she said, stepping forward. "I represent the Human Council of Guides. For 10,000 years, we prepared the galaxy for this moment. The threat approaching our galaxy is real, but it's also an opportunity. A chance for all our species to work together, to show that different civilizations can become something greater than the sum of their parts." Jin-Ho smiled. "We finally understand. Humans didn't just let us study them. They taught us the most important lesson of all. That true strength comes from understanding each other, from combining our different ways of thinking, from working together." Sunhee nodded. "The time has come to face this challenge together. Every species brings something unique to this effort. Humans didn't want to leave the galaxy. We wanted to help the galaxy learn to lead itself." As Jin-Ho looked out at the gathered ships, he saw the beauty of humanity's plan. They had spent 10,000 years teaching the galaxy how to unite, how to cooperate, how to become something greater. Not through force or fear, but through understanding and patience. The final message from Project Unity appeared on all screens. The lesson is complete. The galaxy is ready. Together, we face tomorrow. Jin-Ho knew that whatever was coming from intergalactic space, they would face it as one united galaxy. And it had all started because humans were clever enough to let themselves be studied, patient enough to wait 10,000 years, and wise enough to know that the greatest power comes not from control, but from cooperation.